Hi, I'm Laura Shanley, and this class is called How to Create the Birth of Your Dreams. And I am an author and a speaker. I have a website called unassistedchildbirth.com and also a book by the same name. I've had all my children at home unassisted, and they were wonderful experiences for me. I loved giving birth, and my oldest is 36, and I'm still so enthusiastic about birth. And what I'd like to do in this class is share some of the things that worked for me and some of the things that I've learned since I wrote my book in 1994 and since I gave birth to my babies. So my first big idea is to allow yourself to imagine your ideal birth and really don't put any parameters on it. Think about if you knew that your birth could be whatever you wanted, that everything was safe, you were safe, your baby was safe, everything was going to go smoothly, where would you give birth? Who would you have with you? And if you notice when you think about having someone there, say a doctor or a midwife or a friend or a partner or a parent, think about and allow yourself to really feel, what does it feel like? Does it feel good? Are they a comfort to you? Is that person a comfort? Or do you feel a tightness in your chest? If you think about giving birth outside, does that feel good? And even if you don't plan on giving birth outside, in this exercise, just let yourself go wild and just imagine if you could give birth anywhere, where would it be? And a lot of people do choose outdoor births for this exercise just because it's fun, it feels good. And that's what this is all about, is just letting yourself have fun. And I think birth is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be like sex. It's not supposed to be serious. And the more serious we take it, sometimes the more complicated and difficult it can be. So lighten up. And especially for this exercise, just let yourself imagine your ideal birth. Big idea number 2, at least entertain the possibility that it is possible to create the birth of your dreams. I am a big believer that we create our own reality according to our desires, beliefs, intentions, and expectations. So anything is possible. And specifically for this exercise, just let yourself believe that you are capable of creating your ideal birth. What I found helpful is to read books that deal with the concept that we create our own reality. So really that was more my focus when I was pregnant with my first child. Rather than reading childbirth books, I read books on how to create your own reality. So for me, the Seth material was very helpful by Jane Roberts. In the last few years, I've been studying a lot of the Abraham Hicks material, Esther and Jerry Hicks. And so I think it's good to really familiarize yourself with these concepts. If you are a Christian, the Bible might be inspirational for you, that whatsoever you believe, that will come to pass. So what I have learned from reading these books is that thoughts actually have electromagnetic properties. So what we believe, we actually magnetize to us. So study these concepts. Type in, when you Google, I create my own reality, you'll find many inspirational websites and books. Louise Hay talks about this, Wayne Dyer. So familiarize yourself with those concepts and believe that it's possible to create what you want. Big idea number 3, your body, your baby, your birth. This is your birth. And when you are pregnant, people will come out of the woodwork to tell you how you should give birth. Certainly friends and family are going to come to you and tell you how they think that you should give birth. And I think this can be one of the biggest stumbling blocks I've noticed in all the years I've been writing about birth, that this is what really seems to interfere with birth, with pregnancy and birth, is other people and their ideas. But the fact is that most people do not understand birth. They understand birth, their knowledge of birth comes from the media or comes from their mother, And there's so many myths out there about what birth is. And so you really need to decide that you are the only one that is going to create your birth. You're the only one that has the right to create your birth. And of course, your partner should have a say in this, and you need to take your partner's beliefs and ideas and desires into consideration. But ultimately, you are the one who is giving birth. So you need to take ownership of your birth and basically just stop caring what anybody else thinks. You're not going to be able to convince anybody. You can share things with people that you've found helpful. You can print up birth stories or articles that you found helpful, and you can give them to people who might be a little concerned. But ultimately, you need to let go of what anybody else wants for this birth. This is your birth, and you can create it the way you want it, and you have that right. Big idea number 4, examine your beliefs about birth. As I talked about earlier, we create our own reality according to our desires, beliefs, intentions, and expectations. So it's important to really look at, what do you believe about birth? And consider the idea that many things you believe about birth are not truths, they're simply beliefs. A couple big ones are birth is inherently dangerous and birth is inherently painful. So most people assume those are truths, but what I've found is that they're not. If you read books like Judith Goldsmith's book that's now out of print, and it is Childbirth Wisdom from the World's Oldest Societies. And she talks about anthropologists that would live with a culture for several years, and they might never see a death or a complication in birth. And in healthy tribal cultures, women and babies weren't dying left and right. So, and the idea that birth is inherently painful, I read Childbirth Without Fear by Grantley Dickreed, and he explains what fear does to the body and how it literally shuts off birthing hormones and turns on stress hormones, and it makes birth painful. So other ideas that people think are truths, that women have to vomit throughout pregnancy. This is a belief, and I believe it gets back to fear. You're putting out the stress hormones, and this causes you to have stomach problems. So really think about and write down, what do I believe about birth? And then be willing to consider the fact that these are beliefs, not truths. And I dispel many of these myths in my book, Unassisted Childbirth, and on my website. So I recommend looking there. But just be honest with yourself. And maybe you have some good beliefs about birth, too, that will serve you. But it's important to be honest with yourself and truly write down everything that you believe about both pregnancy and birth. Big idea number 5. Honor your rational, critical mind and do your research. So if you find that when you've written down your beliefs, that you have beliefs that are negative, that birth is going to be difficult, or that birth is hard work, which is something that I see even midwives will perpetuate, that idea that you have to struggle and push and pant, then do some research. And I'd say research natural childbirth websites, home birth websites, unassisted birth websites, and books. And you'll find that actually when you really look at the science behind birth, I'd say Childbirth Without Fear by Grantley Dickreed is a really good book. He really explains physiologically what happens when you are afraid. And most women are afraid in labor. And it's just like when your face turns white when you're afraid, that's because you've triggered the fight-flight response, and your body takes the blood and oxygen, takes it from the face because it assumes that your face doesn't need blood and oxygen, your arms and legs do. So it sends the blood and oxygen into your arms and legs so you can fight this supposed danger or run from it. So what happens when a woman is afraid in labor, which most women are, is that the uterus is literally deprived of blood and oxygen. Grantley Dickreed says that the uterus of a frightened woman is literally white in labor, so it doesn't have the fuel it needs, and that's why childbirth becomes painful, and that's why babies get stuck. So this is what really helped me during my first pregnancy. I wasn't very spiritual at that time. I was just sort of waking up to the idea that there is a larger consciousness. But when I understood physiologically what was happening to my body, it really helped me to overcome my fear of birth. So that's why I think if you really can honor your rational critical mind and also your intuitive mind, but for now, let's look at that rational critical mind, do your research, and you'll understand why birth can be painful and problematic. And that can help you to create a new vision of birth and therefore a better birth. Big idea number 6, create affirmations or belief suggestions about birth. This was a big one for me. I had just come across the concept of that you create your own reality when I got pregnant. And so I created a list of belief suggestions that I said to myself on a daily basis. For me, it was, I believe I am not afraid. I believe I trust my body. I believe I love my body. I believe I am accepting of my sexuality, because birth is a sexual experience. And so if you're ashamed of your body, if you're ashamed of sexuality, this can make birth problematic for you. So these days, it's really easy to find great belief suggestions about birth. Google birth belief suggestions or birth affirmations. There's so many great memes now out there. If you Google positive birth images, you'll find all these great memes that you can print up and put around your house. And this is really powerful. And you don't need to go overboard. I've seen some people try too hard. For instance, they'll say, when I went into labor, I prayed really hard, or I prayed so hard during my pregnancy, and then I got everybody to pray for me. And what you're really saying is that birth left on its own will go badly. So you have to try really hard to make it go well. And you don't. You don't pray for the sun to come up every day. People used to. But now people realize, okay, the sun is going to come up. Your baby is going to come out. And it's really just a matter of relaxing and allowing it to happen. So that's what I did. I had my belief suggestions, and I said them periodically throughout the day, and also used visualization and imagined the way I wanted my birth to go. And I found that to be very powerful. Big idea number 7. Read positive birth stories and watch positive birth videos. When I was pregnant, I read Spiritual Midwifery, which by Ina May Gaskin, which I found very helpful just because of its birth stories. I didn't read the parts of the book that talked about complications. Some people might feel that that wasn't a good thing to do, but I just wasn't led to focus on that, because I believe that you get what you focus on, you get what you concentrate on. And so reading positive birth stories is, sometimes people can read positive birth stories and know very little about the process of giving birth, and they do fine. So there's, if you Google positive birth stories, you'll find some great stories. I have a lot of wonderful stories on my website. Also, watch birth videos. And here again, positive birth videos. I understand that some women do scream through labor, and that's fine. I didn't. And I feel that I would prefer to have a relaxed, comfortable birth with very little pain or no pain, and which my births, that's how they were. And I didn't document them, but that's how they were. Now you can go on YouTube and you can see many wonderful birth videos. I have a great one on the main page of my website, unassistedchildbirth.com. And it's of my friend Cleo giving birth in water. And she doesn't make a sound really. She's just totally relaxed, and she catches her baby, and the baby doesn't even cry. So I think that this can really help cement that image in your mind of what it's like to have a really peaceful, happy, calm birth. Big idea number 8, connect with like-minded women. It used to be women who were choosing to give birth at home or unassisted or even naturally felt alone. They felt like there was no one they could talk to about this. Now, with the internet, it's so great because you really can connect with like-minded women, and I think this can be so helpful. So I think Facebook is probably the best place to go. If you go to Facebook and you type in what it is that you're looking for, you can find many groups devoted to natural birth, home birth, unassisted birth. And there's message boards. Motheringmagazine.com has a big forum where you can post questions that you have, and just connect with women and make friends with women who are either going the route that you're going or who've gone that route and can offer you some suggestions. So I think isolation can really be difficult, and it's something that we don't have to experience anymore. We are not alone. There's other women that want the same things in birth that we do. Big idea number 9, choose a care provider or not. So once you decide what it is that you want in birth, and you've decided maybe that you do want to find a doctor or a midwife, start talking to them. And it's important to share your ideas right at the first meeting, because what happens is that a lot of women create a birth plan, how they want their birth to go. And then they meet with a midwife, and the midwife says, well, we have a policy that we only allow a woman to labor so long, or there are rules and regulations in our state. For instance, in Colorado, if a woman's water breaks, she has to be in active labor within 12 hours. Now, in Oregon, they can go much longer. So you might have the nicest midwife in the world, but who is she going to answer to? Is she going to answer to you, or is she going to answer to the state? And unfortunately, a lot of midwives are afraid of losing their license. Certainly a doctor, if you talk to, he has hospital policies, or she has hospital policies that they need to adhere to. So it's important to get it all out in the open. What I chose to do is to give birth myself. My husband caught our first child, and I caught the other ones. So I didn't want to be restricted at all. I didn't want someone in there telling me what position to be in, how long I should be in labor, when to push, when not to push. And so that's why I chose unassisted childbirth. And so now there's many websites out there. Unassisted childbirth, my site, then there's unassistedhomebirth.com is another good one. Indiebirth.com, INDIE, is a good website that's run by a former midwife who now encourages women to give birth unassisted, or with a midwife who is more willing to listen to the woman rather than to the state. So it's something to consider, giving birth unassisted, because in that way you can give birth in your own time and in your own way. So it's definitely worth researching, even if you choose not to go that route. Big idea number 10, don't push the river. It flows by itself. One of the biggest myths out there about birth is that you have to struggle and push and pant in order to give birth. But actually, there is a consciousness within you that will birth your baby. It's more a matter of relaxing and allowing it to happen rather than making it happen. So when I gave birth with my first baby, I had maybe 3 or 4 sort of involuntary pushes. My body just kind of pushed. All my other babies were born on one push. I basically just let it happen. I wasn't checking dilation. Another myth that you have to know exactly how dilated you are, and then you have to wait until you're 10 centimeters, as if every mother and every baby is the same size. I never knew how dilated I was, and my body just pushed. It's kind of like going to the bathroom. You just let your body work, and when the time is right, you give a push. And so when I hear of women saying, I only had to push for an hour, well, that's way too long. That to me is sort of a constipated birth. If you really are relaxed, let your baby come out. My last baby, my husband was down the hall. I hadn't told him I was in labor yet. I decided to take a bath. I walked across the hall, turned on the bath water, and sat down on the toilet, realized the water bag was between my legs. I stood up and she slid into my hands. And I hadn't even told him I was in labor. But I really relaxed. I just let my baby be born. So it doesn't have to be a struggle. Certainly the whole panting thing, that is, to me, ridiculous. You don't have to know any certain breathing techniques. It's just a matter of allowing the same consciousness that knew how to grow an egg and a sperm into a human being. Let that consciousness complete the process. All you have to do is not interfere physically or psychologically. So, and I go into much more detail about that concept and all of the concepts that I discussed on my website, unassistedchildbirth.com, and in my book, Unassisted Childbirth. And so I encourage you to visit my site and to email me, laurashanley@comcast.net. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. And I've enjoyed speaking with you.